Hi there, it's Sherry Strong, and we are about to go live in 3 minutes with the how to get five ways, strategies that you need to know to get and stay off of sugar. So we have just a few minutes before we go live. Everything's tested and working. And so if you're watching this as the recording, just hang on for a few minutes. It will get started in a few minutes. We just want to make sure that everything was working and that we're live and ready for you to go. So bear with us. Go possibly make a cup of tea, get your sparkling water or your still spring water, close the door, have your headset on if you want to block out external noises, and just kind of sit tight and wait, because in about 2 minutes we are about to start the webinar. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen, and so you'll be able to see my presentation. And I'm going to put up this beautiful Sweet Freedom slide here, which I absolutely love. And yeah, just testing everything. It's ready to go. Andy is going to be sending me questions. So if you have any questions, he's going to send them to me on my phone because I can't see them when I'm presenting on the screen. So if there's any questions that you might have during this broadcast, send them through. Andy will make sure that I get them. If you are super eager, you know, like in school, and you want to put your hand up and go, ooh, 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 Mr. Cotter, that's definitely a reference that ages me by decades. Yeah, so just put urgent in your chat. Start out your chat with urgent, and we'll make sure that that question gets answered. So whether it's live, when it's playing now, or if you're watching the replay and the recording, if you put urgent in the subject matter box, chat box, I'll make sure that that question gets answered. So a little bit of housekeeping to go on. We're going to be here for 60 minutes, and we'll make sure that we've got everything done so that by 60 minutes you are well and truly ready to go. For those of you who are watching us during your lunch hour, we will make sure that you are well and truly done before the lunch hour. I will say two things. We will, around the 40-minute mark, be heading to the #1 thing that gets people to stay off of sugar for good. And we'll be covering that 40 minutes into this webinar. For those of you who are watching the replay and you can't fast forward, my apologies. It's just the nature of the system. But we will be covering that, and there will be a special offer available to only people who watch this webinar. So we'll be setting that up at the end, yeah, for you to watch. So I'm just going to do one more check to see whether, let's see how we're going with the actual platform to make sure. There we go. We are ready. It's noon, so it's right on time. So if you want to just say hello, where you're from in the chat box, it'd be great to hear from you. If you have any questions, just repeating, make sure that you pop your questions in the chat. Don't be shy. Just start chatting. Tell us where you're from, where you're viewing from. If you have any questions, I'm about to start the presentation and won't be able to see my screen. So Andy will make sure that you are, that you're getting. I'm just going to try this. See if that. There we go. Yeah. So Andy will make sure that any questions that you send to me will happen. So I'm just going to get started on the presentation. And I want to start out by saying thank you for attending and congratulations. I can't see anymore where you're from. I'm trusting that you're in the right place at the right time. I'd like you to just for a little bit, although I've said this earlier before the noon piece, to make sure that you have as little interruptions as you possibly can to be present for this. I'm going to be sharing information that I've learned over the years is essential for developing a healthy relationship with food, your body, and the planet. And to let you know, 40 minutes into the webinar, I'll be sharing the #1 thing that you need to get and stay off of sugar, and a special offer for only the people who are actually on this webinar at the end of this session. So I look forward to seeing you at the end and answering any questions that you may have then. But for now, I'm going to get right into it so you can make sure that this is done by 1 p.m. and you can get on with your day. Okay, so for those of you who are joining us who may not know my personal story and how I've come to be doing this work and why I'm actually, the teacher in this space that I feel has value to people beyond the diet space, is because, as you can see from this picture, probably not really well, because I was very vain and self-conscious when I was twice my size. And I basically was eating my way into an early grave and definitely losing, quality of life along the way. I was twice my present size. That's not twice my present weight. That's a bit different. But if you see me in the picture on the right here, I still wear those jeans to this day. And at that size, I can fit into one pant leg of the pants that I was wearing. And a lot of people go on about weight and size and obesity. I was at a conference this weekend and someone said to me, "Oh yeah, you talk about sugar. Oh, there's so many obese people out there." And she was slender. And I said to her, yes, there are, but you know what? There's just as many people who are thin, who have issues with sugar, who are pre-diabetic, and who have diseases that are directly connected to sugar, and are actually experiencing less of a quality of life, because sugar literally is the thief of joy. Like comparison, sugar is also the thief of joy. And I was definitely in that place. And I think the biggest thing that for me was the most crushing was the depression. And truly all of that changed and turned around when I got off of sugar. But I was predisposed to my addiction to sugar from birth. I was one of those babies that was told, my mother was told by doctors and nurses, that this new baby formula was better for her baby than breast milk. And now we know the science behind that is that there's no way that we even have any kind of capability of creating anything near breast milk, because it has over 300 living and unique compounds and enzymes and things we're just beginning to understand the complexities of. Whereas baby formula then, and still does, many of them contain refined sugars, oils, salts, grains, and chemicals. And what it does is it sets a baby, a child, up for addiction, and certainly was for me. I was a very serious little girl with lots of illnesses, often going to hospital, and I was a very sad little girl. And I can't help but wonder how much that would have changed had I not had sugar right from birth. And it didn't stop there. Obviously, as you saw the pictures, I got to twice my size, and I was a serious sugar addict, starting off the morning with half a liter of Sara Lee Ultra Chocolate ice cream and not stopping eating sugar from the moment I woke up in the morning till going to bed at night with a full tummy, an aching belly, and an aching heart. And I often say that addiction is your body's way of telling you you're not listening to your soul. And the research around addiction is actually showing us that addiction is at the heart of it. It's about disconnection. So it's not just disconnection to other people, which is significant and a significant contributor to addiction, but it's disconnection between us and our bodies, actually listening to our body, not just our soul. And it's a disconnection from nature, which is the source of all nourishment. So nature and our physical environment, and our nature as a species. And when we separate ourselves from our true nature, the things that are important to us and that really matter at the heart of life, it's only natural and normal as a species for self-protection, because that's so painful to choose substances and behaviors that make us feel better. And of course, sugar is the most widely available. It's everywhere, it's cheap, and it's in everything. And so it is what they often refer to as the good girl's drug, because you don't get labeled, terrible things like someone who has an illicit drug reaction or something that has a really negative social stigma to it. So what we're seeing now is that because it's in everything and it's everywhere, literally children are starting off life with a disadvantage in that they're eating things that impact their body negatively. We're seeing now that we're actually altering and weakening the gene pool, because our food is not only lacking nutrients, and the nutrients are processed out of it, but it has this addictive substance that keeps us in a cycle of addiction. And this is on the screen right now. You'll see the illustration, one of the illustrations I did for Return to Food, my book. It says what we fill our children's bodies with affects how they think, how they feel, it affects how they behave, and it affects who they are. And ultimately, I would even say it can impact who they become. And Yeah, it's robbing us. It is our thief of joy. And one of the things that it's also contributing to is, I believe, a vitamin deficiency of the world's most powerful nutrient, which is love, vitamin L. When we consume sugar, it's so much harder to connect with our heart. It's so much easier to disconnect with our bodies, to stop listening to our bodies. And what we're seeing is that refined sugar actually strips the body of nutrients. So say you're having a salad during the day, but you're eating all these other sweet things. It can actually be stripping the very nutrients you ate the salad for. So we need to start to look at this piece and not just look at our sugar consumption, as we'll learn in the number 5 strategy that's coming up around what it is that will help us get and stay off of sugar. But we need to have an awareness around what is triggering us to actually eat that sugar. And we definitely look into that in the program. And you can see can be the result, maybe not just for many of you out there, maybe you're actually a skinny sugar addict. Right? There's, not all addicts are plump. Some of the addicts are actually eating sugar, and because of metabolism or what else they're not eating or the volume they're eating, they can still be just as malnourished and toxic in a thin body as they can in an overweight body. So really important to make that distinction. Now, to understand why this is all happening beyond the mental, emotional, and spiritual reasons why sugar addiction is so rampant, is that, oh, shoot. Excuse me, it's saying that the slides are not showing. So I'm just going to make sure. Nope, it says, oh, I see. There we go. That's why I was sharing the wrong screen. So thank you, Andy, for letting me know that. And we'll get back to this right now. Andy, if you can let me know if that is showing now, that would be awesome. He's just sent me in big, big text. Slides are not showing. Okay, so hopefully I get a signal now. I'm just going to put, there we go. Okay. So let's look into why we actually become addicted to sugar. Okay, so if you see how sugar is actually made, it's made in a very similar way to how we take poppy sap and turn it into heroin. So poppy sap in its natural state is not highly addictive. It has opiates in it, and in fact, I was told that they actually take the poppies, the sap, they dry it, they crush it, turn it into a powder, and they sprinkle it into teas during funerals in Iran to help with the grieving process. I guess similar to how we might use a glass of wine, or we might use a cup of coffee has a mild stimulating opiate effect in our body, and it will just take the edge off. Now, when we process it, not we as in collectively, you and I, but when they process opium sap, they start to heat it and they start to remove the macro and micronutrients, which is similar to when they're making sugar. They start to remove, as they cook it, they start to remove the macro and micronutrients. These are all vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals, the things that are actually nourishing. I'm just going to check 1 second. There we go with Andy. Yeah, so they're removing the nutrients. Now, anytime we take a food or a substance, a natural substance that we eat, and we remove the macro and micronutrients, what happens is that food is less nourishing. Now, our brains have developed over, time to shut off when we're nourished. It's not just our tummy, but our brains actually do that. And when you remove all those precious nutrients from a food, in this case sugar or sugar cane, your brain doesn't shut off when it's highly refined. If you have a cup of cane juice, it's filling, it's nourishing. And so it's really rare that you can actually drink past a cup of cane juice. In fact, when I had my first cup of cane juice, I couldn't finish it, and I've never been able to finish a glass. It's just too sweet, and my body just kind of goes, you've had enough, right? But when we refine it, it changes the way our body actually relates to it, and we actually eat. Oh, that's really interesting. So 1 second, Andy's saying it's not full screen, and I can't figure out why, because I'm doing it full screen. So not sure why that's actually happening. So my apologies. Yeah, So I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why it isn't going full screen. So that's just a technical thing. We're just going to have to deal with what we got because I'm actually putting it full screen. So there we go. Okay, so here we are. We are eating a substance that has the nutrients removed from it, and we're eating more. And it's not just sugar. It's anything that starts out naturally in nature, and we start to process it. It will no longer nourish the body, and so the body automatically eats more because it's about survival, and eating more according to how our bodies have developed means we're more likely to survive in nature. Now we take ourselves out of a natural environment and it becomes a problem. Okay, so just to kind of let you know a bit of my background, when I was twice my size, I was a chef, and I also had a cooking school. I started a cooking school, and I started to work with people who had weight management issues and eating behaviors, eating disorders. And I was teaching classes that were just about real food, but they were low-fat, quick and easy meals for busy people. And it drew the attention of a doctor and a dietitian who then started to refer clients to me. And I started to get people who were wanting to develop this healthy relationship with food. Now, this is what I looked like. This middle picture here is what I looked like when I was actually running those low-fat, quick and easy meals. So I was twice my size, had a pathological attraction to horizontal stripes. I was eating too much food, and I was talking about how to prepare these low-fat, quick and easy meals. And basically, I think some people were thinking, is she eating any of this food? And I think another, bunch of people were thinking, maybe she's eating all of this food. So not sure exactly what was going on, but I still had not addressed my sugar addiction. And even after I had lost weight, I still hadn't fully addressed it. So it wasn't until I, basically started to understand that there was mental, emotional, and spiritual drivers. Okay. So I apologize because Andy sent me a message. It's at 43% on Zoom and not 100% on the top left. So let's see. Oh, I see. Let's do this. Okay, and try that. Let's see if that works. Okay. So Andy, is that working now? Okay. We're going to go no matter what. Okay. So what happened is I started to work with people. I started to have success with people. I started to have success in my own life. And that led to me basically starting to be on television shows, being featured in glossy magazines, and speaking, having my own column in certain magazines, being featured at universities as a speaker. So Andy's just said, just turn to 43% and not full screen. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. There we go. I don't know what's going on. Technology, it changes from day to day, so I'm learning. Okay. Now, so I had managed to get to all these levels, understand all those things. I'd written a book called Return to Food. I'd developed several online food coaching programs, and I had lost that weight, but I still had this dirty little secret. And the dirty little secret was I was still eating sugar, and I was just wanting it. I did a Sweet Freedom Sunday on this where I just have one, cup of coffee with a bit of coconut palm sugar in it, and just one croissant at the farmer's market on Saturday, and just one glass of wine on Friday. And I was just wanting it into still having a certain level of sugar addiction. And a business consultant, or it's actually a business owner who was mentoring me at the time, I was doing some work for their company. And he said, I really think you need to take on a cause. And he said, I think you need to take on sugar. And I remember looking at him, not saying these words out loud, but to myself thinking, there's no flipping way I'm ready to give up sugar, right? I knew I had sugar addiction and I wasn't ready to fully address it. And in all transparency, I am not one of these people who want to live my life 100% sugar-free, at least not now in my life. That might change, and I'm open to that changing. But right now, I actually like having lovely, sweet things in my life. What I don't want is for that to overrule and control my life. I want to be free from sugar addiction. And that's what Sweet Freedom addresses. We actually help you get free from that hold that sugar has on you. So it's not about saying for the rest of your life you don't and won't and can't have sugar. Although there is 1% of the population that absolutely need to do that. And that can change over time too. They can be from an absolutely no tolerance person to being able to have certain things once they've handled the reason why they're addicted to sugar in the first place. And you know, it wasn't until I almost lost my mom. She was in hospital due to complications from taking an antibiotic. And those complications happened because her immune system was really weak. And because her immune system was weak, this fluoroquinine antibiotic almost killed her. And so when I saw her in hospital and I kind of looked around and I saw all these other people who literally were eating themselves into early graves and lower quality of life, I felt compelled to take on something that was bigger than me. And I'll tell you something, that for most of the reason why we actually overconsume sugar, it's often for good reasons within our own minds and with our own hearts. You know, my mom was nursing her sister through the last stages of cancer, and she was in excruciating, completely unmanageable pain. And my mom was using sugar as a coping tool. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but at some level, we all have pain. We all have a level of discomfort. And there's this thing that happens with sugar that's just really lovely in the moment, you know. It's just unfortunate after that moment, you know, and what it does to us, you know, an hour from having it, or 2 hours, or even the next day. And it literally can rob us of that energy in our life. Now, when my mom was in the hospital, there was a woman who had been admitted because she had a diabetes-induced stroke, and she broke her leg in the fall of her stroke. So she's in the hospital, and her family, who clearly loved her, was basically there, and they brought in this tray of donuts, just like this, you can see. Canadian brand, Tim Hortons, they brought in a tray of donuts to a diabetic woman. And those donuts sat on the end of her bed for the duration of her stay in the hospital. Because they felt she had insulin, she could just manage it. It didn't matter what she ate. And I remember thinking, this is crazy. And then I started to look around the hospital. I saw so many people who were impacted. You could see that they were malnourished. There's very clear signs that the body gives. And the end result of this malnourishment is that we end up being quite sick. We end up being vulnerable to disease, because sugar not only feeds a lot of diseases and conditions, it creates an acid environment in the body in which disease thrives. It creates inflammation, and inflammation is connected to every single disease on the planet. And in fact, there's over 146 diseases or conditions that are connected to sugar consumption. Dr. Nancy Appleton, who's a PhD, has done the research to show that sugar is definitely connected to all of these conditions that you can see on the screen. Now, I'm not going to read it to you, but essentially there are, you know, so many diseases that totally can be reversed by getting sugar out of your life. Your quality of life can go up not only significantly, your mental acuity. So just to give you an idea, you know, the big ones that are killing us. So heart disease, we're now seeing information that was suppressed from the sugar industry to conclusively link the #1 cause of heart disease is related to our sugar consumption. Diabetes, of course, is sugar related. You can't get diabetes without refined sugar in the system, you know, as far as, you know, type 2 diabetes, okay? The other one is Alzheimer's. They're now calling Alzheimer's diabetes of the brain, or type 3 diabetes. So we're seeing a direct connection. So if you're getting a lot of that forgetfulness, you know, you definitely want to get sugar out of your life, because it's a contributor. So you start to look at the major diseases that were killing us. You start to see how much sugar has infiltrated our lives. And you see there's definitely a connection. In fact, the head of Amsterdam Health said that sugar is the most dangerous drug of our time. And one of the illustrations I put in Return to Food, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's saying refined sugar is natural as heroin, and it's good for you too, right? Okay, so this stuff is crazy, and it might seem crazy to compare it to drugs like cocaine, as many people are hearing right now, but it's absolutely true. This is what you can see with this brain scan, is sugar there on the left. A couple of things happen. It lights up the brain's dopamine receptors 8 times more than cocaine, but not only that, it lights up more receptors in the brain than cocaine does. So technically, just because it lights up the brain 8 times more, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 8 times addictive, but we definitely know it is a major addictive substance to cocaine. And as I said, it's everywhere. You may not snort those donuts up your nose or the powdered sugar up your nose, but this is the effects that it has on the body. We start to lose energy. It's number one thing. Your body starts to lose energy when it's out of balance. You start to get vulnerable to diseases, and that starts in little things, just like colds and coughs and aches and pains and headaches and all that kind of thing. And if we stop listening to those little signs that your body's trying to communicate to you to get back in balance, ultimately this is what happens. And we're seeing that we know now that cancer is fed by sugar. It's one of its favorite foods. And that because cancer can't live in an alkaline environment, what happens is that sugar creates this acidic environment in the body. We're seeing an exponential rise in cancers. So this is really hardcore and something serious to know, that if you have any kind of disease or condition, getting off of sugar is absolutely essential. And for those of you who might, be wondering about the cost effectiveness of it, one of the best things you can actually do for your pocketbook is to get off sugar. So not only can you save significant amounts of money, right? And just with one of those little things, if you have like a muffin and a coffee each day that has sugar in it, you can actually be saving $4,000 a year by switching to the Sweet Freedom alternatives, of which we give you many. But imagine what you could do with $4,000. And that's just one treat. So if you're like I was, and you're eating half a liter of ice cream, and you're not eating, nourishing food, enough of it, and you're eating sweet things all day, and you start to replace that with nourishing, energizing, protective foods, you start to save a lot of money. And if you start to look at what sickness and inflammation causes in your body, you're going to start to save a lot with your health, because financially that costs you. If you think about what does 1 week of productivity take out of your business or your work week or your employer's business, there are huge costs for that. And not to mention there's something called presenteeism. And that's not like absenteeism, which costs a company, from people being away from their job, but people being at work, but because their bodies and their brains are so full of sugar, they're not thinking straight. So they're not really effective within their job. That has a huge effect on the cost and what you're doing. And then if you get sick, and you're in hospital, and you have to purchase prescription drugs and things like that, it becomes really, really expensive. And that can actually impact every area of your life. So you can have mood swings that come from sugar. How does that impact you forming really healthy relationships? So if it's dampening your spirit and you're experiencing depression, what kind of monetary figure would you put on that? So you can start to see that sugar really does cost us, and that there are great reasons and advantages for getting off of it. But the old diet mentality doesn't work. If sugar is a drug, and we see that it's made like a drug and it impacts the body like a drug, that means that it requires more than a diet. It requires a strategy. So that old mentality of don't eat this, eat this, isn't addressing the actual underlying causes of what it is that's driving you to have sugar. And ultimately, it doesn't tend to work, right? That don't eat this, don't eat that doesn't work. So another thing that doesn't work is outrunning it. And this is where a lot of thin people with sugar addiction are, deceived by, is they've been told that they just have to run it off and they'll be fine. but you can't outrun the ill effects of sugar in your body, and particularly if you're putting your body under a lot of stress physically, that can actually create a lot of problems and create havoc in your body. There's one of the things that happens is the body actually creates fat cells to store excess toxins away from the vital organs. So if you're super thin and thin and you have a low fat percentile, but you're putting tons of sugar in your body, that's usually accompanied by chemicals, and yeah, it creates toxic effects in your body. Those chemicals would have no place to go except, your tissues and your vital organs, which creates that environment, that acidic environment in your body that makes it ripe for disease. So no, you can't outrun sugar. Just because you're thin and fit doesn't mean you're not vulnerable to the effects of sugar. Now, another thing that doesn't work is this whole kind of boot camp mentality, judgment, you're bad, you're wrong, all that kind of thing might work for some people in the short term. But ultimately, what we do find that does work is a much more loving approach to dealing with our behaviors around food. And so what does work, if we start to move into it, is, and this is we're getting into the 5 reasons of why you actually signed up for this webinar. So I hope that the precursor to covering this information was valuable in setting you up to understand that we need more of a diet. And one of the #1 things we get you doing is to get into awareness. So you need to understand 2 things around awareness piece. You need to understand where sugar is, how much sugar you're actually eating. So that's kind of the physical side of things. And then you need to understand what are the triggers or the behaviors or the neural pathways that you've developed that keep you into sugar addiction. So when I speak to so-and-so, or when I watch this, or when I listen to the news, or, when I have that conversation with my mother, I then go eat sugar. And sometimes it's not that easy to kind of make the connection, but as you start to excavate and understand and really get deeply aware of your relationship to sugar and how it's impacting you, that will actually start to shift your relationship with sugar. And Romney, who was one of the first people to go through the Sweet Freedom program, she says that as a nutritional consultant and Ayurvedic diet and lifestyle practitioner, I'm always trying to get to the root of health challenges. And she said, taking Sherry's Sweet Freedom course helped me not only discover the deep-rooted reasons of my own sugar addiction, but gave me a why. And that's another kind of a bonus piece today, is finding your why is really important in this process. So she says it's something that no other programs offer, particularly in the sugar space. And the level of support in a safe environment added to the small changes in my mind, body, and spirit, or body, mind, and spirit, and it made a big impact. So going on to something else that we need to do around this whole piece is we need to start to understand nature, our connection to nature, our relationship to nature, and our own nature. And remember, when I started out the webinar, I talked about one of the #1 reasons why we have sugar addiction and all addictions in the world is disconnection. So we're disconnected to other people. As the human mammal, we are a social species. And when we start to disconnect from those close relationships and interdependent relationships that we had as a species that helped us survive, when we disconnect from that, it gives us this feeling of discomfort that we will often suppress or try to push down with a food, substance, or behavior. So understanding, there's 2 things to understand about nature. One is understanding how nature works, how our own nature works as the human mammal, as a species works, and how the human mammal is meant to be eating in context of nature. So some people are actually offended to think that they're an animal or a mammal, but it's true, we are. And as such, just like every other animal on the planet, there is a species-specific diet. Now, the difference between the human mammal is that we're not just restricted to one part of the planet. Often we'll have a species of animals who are just in certain parts of the world, right? And so their diet is reflected of their own world. With the human mammal, we need to understand is that we are meant to be eating in a way, in a context, in a hierarchy of nature, right? But that differs depending on where we are in the world. And in fact, the sustaining, the human mammal and the survival of our species and our planet, the biodiversity dictates that we're not all eating the exact same thing. So although there's commonalities between how we're meant to eat in context of nature, where we are in the world, it doesn't mean as the human mammal that the diet that the Aboriginal population in Australia ate was the same as the Inuit in the Arctic, right? So there are commonalities, and when we start to understand how we're meant to eat as a species, relevant to where we are on the planet, but as the human species, different to a bird or a monkey, you know, or a chimpanzee or a cow or a horse, we start to understand our intricate and complex relationship with food, which is complex, but fortunately in nature makes it simple for us by what is most bioavailable. And understanding that, and understanding concepts that I teach, like the consumption concept, which help us understand how it is that we as the human species are meant to eat according to what is most easily obtained in nature. So how much wheat would you eat on the planet if you had to source all of it yourself? So not just gathering the wheat, but drying the wheat and separating the germ from the husk, because for the human species, the husk is inedible and we're repelled by it. And then kind of extrapolating from that, if you had a choice between dinner tonight, between chicken or an omelet, what would you choose? Now, most people would choose the chicken because, unless they're vegetarian or vegan, they would choose the chicken because it's actually a more addictive food, right? Harder things are to obtain in nature. Nature gives us stronger physiological desires for them, so we actually work harder for them, which in a natural environment perpetuates our species, right? Is our chances of survival. In the supermarket, it works the opposite way around, okay? So that which is harder to obtain in nature is often the things that are most readily available to us in the supermarket. If we're given the same choice for dinner between the chicken and the egg, and we have to go and find the egg, or we have to go catch, kill, pluck, disembowel, bleed, and prepare chicken, most of us would become vegetarian, but even the most hardened kind of carnivore amongst us would actually think twice about killing a chicken that might then produce more eggs. That is a much more sustainable way of eating. So as we start to understand our complex relationship with nature, we start to actually become free, right? So Sarah Perzolo talks about how this piece of the puzzle was really important to her, and it was really what her soul was searching for. And she said when she started out her first food journey, she was filled with exhaustion, mixed messages, and bewilderment about how to nourish myself and my family. And that's what the philosophies that I teach really help you get, this is what I'm meant to be eating. I don't need, a big volume of of information, or to have a, nutritionist, on speed dial to figure out what I'm meant to shop for. I actually understand that piece. And when you get to understand that, you develop a confidence around food and what it is you're meant to be eating. That really is liberating. Okay. The other piece, which is really important, is the social context in which we eat. So how we're meant to eat as the human species is very social. And so how we eat, the social context in which we eat, is as powerful as what we're eating. So I often say I'd much rather have a greasy bowl of noodles with people who are kind, positive, loving, and upbuilding than to have the most gourmet, nutritiously prepared meal that's delicious with people who are angry, depressed, and negative. Now, of course, the power of sweet freedom and return to food and the philosophies I teach is taking that which is nourishing, energizing, and protective, making it taste good, and sharing it with people who you love and care about. And that is a piece that is significant in beating sugar addiction. So another piece around this for you to understand is finding your why and understanding what it is you want your life to look like. If you don't have a destination in mind, you're just going to kind of flail. You're not going to be very specific. If you don't have a destination to put in the GPS of your life, you're going to end up wandering. Whereas if you have a certainty of what you want to feel like in your body, what you want to accomplish in the world, it's much easier to actually develop a plan to get there if you know where you want to go. So that's where we talk about finding your why is so important, and getting really clear about it and working towards that. And so another piece of the puzzle is of the 5 things that I was going to share with you, and I'll recap these afterwards so you'll get it. But you need to just start. And there's a great author called Stephen Pressfield who's written 3 books about resistance within us. Anytime we want to do something that's of significance in the world, our egos kind of keep us, keep the status quo to keep us safe. And so we experience a lot of resistance around change, whether it's overt or through self-sabotage. It's very natural for us to actually feel that. So one of the pieces around Sweet Freedom and getting people off of sugar is we start before we're ready. Because if you wait until you're ready, the chances of you starting are greatly diminished. I believe with every great endeavor, you have to start and then you will get ready in the process of starting. It doesn't happen the other way around. Okay, I'm ready now, I'm going to do it, right? You have to have the mindset of no matter what, I'm going to start, and the resources I need will come to me when I need it. And I found that consistently that actually happens is we get ready in the process of doing. And Delcy Miller, who is definitely one of our, Sweet Freedom sheroes, she was 62 when she started the program. And she said basically the program's been life-changing for her. So she tried many weight loss programs and stopping sugar programs with no lasting result. She said, however, with this program, I truly found freedom. Upon starting the program, I had no confidence that I could give up processed sugar, but I decided to commit to attending the meetings and doing the homework. And I've heard principles in this program that I never heard of before that I can follow for life, not just for the duration of the program. And she also appreciates the honest and loving manner in which the program is presented. So she's so happy she can shout. Okay, so here's one of the biggest things to understand around this piece is that diet, the whole diet and the physical side is this part of our eating habits. And then underneath the surface of the iceberg, if this is the metaphor for the human species, the tip of the iceberg is our physical life in our world. But the thing that actually drives our behaviors is all underneath. It's in the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, the subconscious. So if you never deal with what actually what was causing those behaviors, that's why most diets don't work. Is because they tend to deal with just the physical. And most people, when they finish a diet, and we know statistics show it has a 95% failure rate, what happens is we often blame ourselves. And the truth is because the diet never dealt with the actual underlying causes and drivers of your behavior. So it's never going to be effective. And at best, it's going to only be effective until we run out of willpower. And that's what we run on if we're not actually dealing with the underlying causes. Okay, so Pam Dennis, or Pam, who's one of our Sweet Freedom alumni, she says that she was drowning in the cycle of weight loss and binge eating. And when she basically heard me on a radio interview, she signed up for the program and she followed her intuition. If you talk to Pam, you'll see that it was an intuitive thing, kind of a sense of an inner knowing. And she said, I'm addicted to sugar, but my cravings are manageable when I eat nourishing and a sugar-free diet. Sweet Freedom provides numerous really delicious recipes that have taught me how to eat sugar-free. And she says even her friends are clamoring for the recipes. As a kind of supportive thing, I'm actually involved in the program. So I'm not just giving you the recordings and leaving you there. We have Zoom sessions that you're able to be live and present for and ask me questions. And so she says, Sherry also provides a supportive online platform with other people in the program that has been instrumental in my 3 months of sugar freedom. And the first time I can see myself having long-term success in eating healthy, balanced diet. And I'd pretty much given up hope in achieving. So I feel better than I have in years, and I'm enjoying my Sweet Freedom immensely. So I'm just going to go through the 5 things that you need to stay and get off sugar. I've covered them, but I'm going to kind of go over them again. So awareness piece, that is the awareness of how much sugar you're having, where sugar is and what you're eating, and the triggers that get you to eat sugar, and the neural pathways that we've developed around our choices that we automatically go to sugar. So the awareness piece, you have to have awareness before you can begin to change behavior. Number 4 is you have to understand nature around us and your nature, and you need to connect with that. And how do we connect with that? We connect with that through nourishment. So mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. This is the piece that we need to actually get to, right? To actually create that connection, because we got to connect to the physical nature that enables us to inhabit the physical body, that can connect us to our own human nature. And understanding that is really key to the process. And so the number 2 thing is, like marriage, parenting, and entrepreneurship, the 3 things that these have in common is that we're rarely ever ready for any of those things until we get started. So we need to begin before we're ready. And in doing that, by getting started, you know, we actually initiate the forces that come to support us. And we develop the confidence in the doing that then gets us ready to actually give up sugar. And that's why one of the things in our program is we don't have you giving up sugar right away. We get you ready in the first 4 weeks, so you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically nourished. And it makes it much easier to say goodbye to sugar, okay? So the number 1 reason that I said we would get to around the 40-minute mark, and it's in the 42nd minute mark, this is the number 1 thing that our alumni say keeps them on track for Sweet Freedom. And we notice the people who actually are active and supportive in the community, so not just supporting other people, but requesting support, engaging in the program, it is the thing that makes all the difference. It's the number 1 reason why Alcoholics Anonymous and the other companies related to, whether it's Narcotics Anonymous or all those things, it is the community and the regular meetings and the tapping into the strength and the power and the support and accountability of the group that keeps you on track. So wherever you are in your Sweet Freedom journey, if you're wanting to get and stay off of sugar, you need to be in a community that understands not just, you know, the things that you're actually going through, but the processes and the strategies that you're using to get off sugar, because they're going to relate to it and they're going to actually understand it. Okay, so people like Christina Henning, she says that she struggled with food and sugar her whole life. She said, I've tried more nutritional approaches than I can even remember, including some really wacky ones. I don't know about if you can relate to that, but I certainly can. And she said, I've even quit sugar cold turkey several times. I've studied the subject and done a lot of emotional work around it. And even with all of that, I was still at sugar's mercy. So I could definitely relate to that. Many ways. She said, I confess I started the Sweet Freedom online program with more reservations than enthusiasm, but I knew it had at least one thing that I never had in my early attempts at quitting, and that was community. Research shows that community is a key factor for continued success. And so I thought, even if I get nothing else, I'll get that. But she says, I ended up with so much more. And she says, Sherry takes a holistic approach to getting sugar-free, and that comes from her personal experience, yes, and working with lots of clients over the years and seeing what does and doesn't work. She says, and week by week takes you on a journey to identify what drives your addiction, what will motivate you to change, and real-world tools to help you to help the change stick. She says nice things here. She's knowledgeable, compassionate, unconditional, honest, and funny. Her belief that you can do it is unshakable. And I can tell you that absolutely. I know that if I can do it, and some of the people that I've seen who thought it was absolutely impossible, you absolutely can do it. If you're given the right tools and the strategy and support, you absolutely can do it. She says, for probably the first time in my life, I know that I'm stronger than sugar. And though it may still tempt me, it doesn't control me. A month ago, I couldn't have said that. And that feels like a miracle. I'm so grateful to have found this program, and I can't recommend it enough. So I'm going to tell you about this program because I truly believe it has the potential to save your life, to reverse disease symptoms. It's not about a cure, and it's something that you will get ready by doing the work and by having the support, but it's not a quick fix. It's about actually doing the thing that makes all the difference, which is addressing the cause of why you're having sugar in the first place and nourishing you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So with the program, these are the benefits you're definitely going to get from it. You're going to be able to cut your sugar cravings. That's the number 1 question we get from people. How do I cut my sugar cravings? Basically, you're going to understand why you're actually craving things in the first place, the things you're doing that are contributing to your cravings, and how you can actually reverse that. So once you actually start to get into that process of what we call hypernourishment, and you start to nourish yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and of course physically, those cravings are going to go down. And as a result, you're going to sleep better, you're going to look and feel better, you're going to have an increased immunity to disease. And of course, with all of those things, a lot more energy. And one of the big things we get time and time again about people are saying, I'm thinking more clearly, like I'm on my game, you know, I am functioning more mentally and remembering more, right? And the other thing is that if you're not putting all that refined sugar, which is a drug in your body, you know, you're not going to have the crashes and the terrible mood swings. And the other thing is, as you start to nourish yourself, as we will show you how to do it, no matter where you are in the world or what budget you're on, you're going to start to heal sugar erosion. And so we have a process. Like before you're giving up sugar, we get you ready. We go through the awareness piece. And we get you into starting to replacing the white stuff for the right stuff. Then we get you nourished. Okay, we start to work on the mental, emotional, and spiritual side of it. And we start to eliminate the things and replace them with higher grade things, so that when you get into the place of actually giving up sugar, that actual time, you are ready. So we have a system. It works. It's proven. And it's, you know, it's the thing that makes all the difference. We also have things like the 7 Recipes for Life series. So we've got recipes on everything that you're going to need to nourish yourself and to make it taste good. We've got the recipes there for you. And we have like 50 plus recipes just on the Sweet Freedom website as well. Of course, it's that number one thing. We have community, connection, and support in the private Facebook group. We also have live Zoom sessions, which I'll get into, but we have also these guides. So it's like your Sweet Freedom toolbox that you can use. So if you want to go shopping, we've got a guide for you. If you're eating out, we've got a guide for you. If you're looking to find those hidden secret sugars, we've got a guide for you. If you want to set up your kitchen to win, we've got a kitchen audit guide. And for those of you who have hardcore sugar addiction, and most likely you have Candida, we've got a Candida guide to help you knock that on the head. And once you get Candida under control within your body, and it's not overgrown within your body, you start to feel a balance, and you'll notice all those wonderful things start to happen. But it's really important that you get that handled and dialed in. We also have something, no matter where you are in the program, you've got additional information. So you've got the 7-day challenge, the Return to Food 7-day challenge, where it's basically, I cover all the philosophies that I teach in my book, Return to Food, the same philosophies that I do for private coaching, where people start at $1,000 for that private coaching, up to $10,000 for a lifestyle makeover, and for the 8-week program that I teach, and I take people through that process, and the process that we teach at the Sweet Freedom Retreat, which is about $3,500 to attend. All of that is actually covered in the Return to Food 7-day challenge. There's tons of information, so no matter where you are in the program and the modules are released, you still have all of this education you can access at any time. And of course, you can go back to the Facebook group if you have any questions based on that. So one of the things that our alumni say is the thing that keeps them on the Sweet Freedom train is we have a weekly Zoom call. So the material's released on a Monday. You get to go and look through all that material, and then on a Tuesday evening, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I get on a live Zoom call with you, and I go through the content because people learn differently. So I start to go through it, and then at the end, you have access to ask me any questions, no matter where you are in the program, anything. That's live time one-on-one with me. And bonus 3, oh, sorry, that was the Zoom live challenge. I got this mixed up. Okay, so that was the Zoom session that I was just talking about. Here's the other bonus, is that once you actually start your 30-day challenge, and that's 4 weeks into the program, that's the 30-day challenge to cut out sugar completely, to show you what your body actually feels like completely drug-free. Every day there's a video that you access on the platform relevant to that day of the challenge and what you're going through. And people are consistently blown away at how the videos really help them through that 30-day program, and how it almost seems like I'm reading your mind as to what you're going through. But you've got a live Zoom session that we've recorded with anywhere from a 3 to 5 minute video that helps you get through that process. We also have bonus videos from the Sweet Freedom Summit. This was a live summit that I did last year where we had over 24,000 people register online. I had 28 speakers, and I take the very best top attended talks with people like Damon Gamo from That Sugar Film, JJ Virgin, who's written a lot about sugar and getting off of sugar, to Dr. Michael Murray and Ocean Robbins and Ty Bollinger, Trudy Scott, Kim Barthel, and Jonathan Lansman. These are awesome talks, and they're great bonuses that you can access to anytime. So I'm not sure where you are in your Sweet Freedom journey and where you are in the decision-making process of whether you're going to join us for the 8-week online program. But what I do know is that there's 3 things that tend to come up for people. And it's the resistance uses within us to not actually take action, the action we know that's literally going to propel our life forward. And number 1, it's usually time. Or it's money. Those are kind of the two things that keep people stopped. They're kind of the most easily, readily accepted excuses that stop us. And when I'm saying that, I'm not being disrespectful. You may legitimately believe that you don't have the time and you don't have the money to do this. And the truth is that when you get how important and significant it is for you to get a sugar, and you realize how that can actually shift and change your life to free you up to have more time because you're thinking clearly. You're not caught up in the drama of your body actually fluctuating because it's malnourished. You will actually save time and money from the program. And the third reason is probably the lesser known, but more often than not, we have a trust issue. And that trust issue is, 1, do you trust me that I'm actually going to say what I'm going to deliver? And we have many testimonials that can actually deal with that. And look at that piece and they're going, well, there's credibility. It's working for all these other people. We then go to the, can I trust myself? Will it actually work for me? And will I actually do the work? Well, I promise you that even if you get just one piece of the puzzle through this, I promise you that it will be worth the time and investment. I often say to Kevin, my business partner, that just the Facebook group alone, having lifetime access to that, we're not just talking a year. You have lifetime access to that Facebook group, the support there. Having those Zoom sessions connecting with me, just if you had 15 minutes with me, that's the cost of the program, covered and taken care of. When I sell a laser coaching session, that's the time. You're not only getting 8 hours of Zoom access, you have access to the Facebook group and the community, which we know is the #1 powerful thing for getting people and staying off of sugar. So can I just show you that the 8-week online program, that's based on the $697 program that I would actually sell to my food coaches to actually work with their clients. So that's $697. The lifestyle guides are $97 value. Their 7 Recipes for Life series is a $67 value. And the bonuses alone are worth $391. And of course, just like the MasterCard commercial, little bit corny, but the private Facebook group, I truly believe, is priceless. So what we sell the Sweet Freedom online program for is $197. It's over a $700 value, I promise you. And for anyone who's on the webinar today, we have a special link that you can actually purchase the $167 price. That's $30 off if you buy it today. Now, for those of you who are watching the webinar, this offer is actually valid until midnight. And after midnight, we won't be accepting the anyone at the $167 price. The shopping cart will go back to $197. I still think it's exceptional and extraordinary value at $197, but at $167, that's basically, as I said, it's worth, that alone is worth a 15-minute laser coaching call with me. And people have shifted their lives significantly with a laser coaching call. So that is the Sweet Freedom program. I just want to quickly go back through the 5 things that you need to get and stay off of sugar. You need the awareness piece of how much sugar you're eating and what's triggering you to eat sugar. You need to understand nature, your nature, human nature, and nature and how we interact with it as the human species. You also need to get nourished, and not just physically nourished, although that's significant. We help you do that in the program. You need to be nourished mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And the other piece I didn't cover in that, which I cover in my book and in the program, is hypernourishment. And by actually removing toxicity in those areas, it makes it much easier to get nourished in those areas. You want to begin before you're ready, so don't wait until you're ready to get started. In getting started and in doing, you will get ready to give up sugar. And number one, no matter where you are, what program you choose, you need a supportive community to keep you accountable, to support you when you're not actually feeling strong, okay? So I love these last little illustrations I'm going to share to you that I did for the book Return to Food. This is one of my favorites. It's become your own hero. So I believe that we're all here to do something really special. You may have heard that before, you may be rolling your eyes, or you may really get it and know that you have untapped potential within you. And when you take care of the physical vessel that you're living in, and you start to step into your potential and you become your own hero, you do the thing you fear you cannot do, but you feel also that you were born to do it, the thing you most admire in others, but in your own unique, amazing, and loving way. When you step into your hero's journey like that, and getting off of sugar is a significant piece to helping you do that, you are going to achieve what we call sweet freedom. And we help you do that. We help you end sugar addiction for good and get sugar-free naturally. And that is, that's the key, we believe, to having the life and stepping into the life that we're all worthy of and meant to be living. So we have a link here in the webinar that you can take you to get that 167. Andy's put that up. And once you sign up for the program, we're actually starting and opening the doors today. So you do have, it's time sensitive till midnight tonight, because we want you to be able to be present in the group and not be playing catch up. So we want you to be able to look at those modules at the very least, so that when we have our live call tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you are ready to go to actually have that information to get going on your sweet freedom journey. So again, that price is $167 if you sign up before midnight today. That's $30 off the program, and I personally believe this program is worth 10 times that. And if you were to hire me to do this on your own, if it was just one-on-one and I took you through this process, it would cost you $10,000. And that's not some kind of online marketing hyperbole exaggeration. I've had clients that have actually paid that to help them achieve their sweet freedom and go in and do the work that you're going to learn in the workshop. When I work with people one-on-one, that's what I charge. So now you're going to get access to this for $167. If I could give this a program away for free and thought that people would actually do it and take action, I would. But what I do know is that when people invest in themselves, when they actually have skin in the game and they put money down, they will engage more than if it's just gifted to them. And I know that from studies, I know that from my own personal experience, and I know that from gifting many people the program who didn't feel, because they hadn't actually put the money towards it, they didn't actually end up doing the work. So with 167, you really can start your way on a sweet freedom journey. And with that, you just follow the links in this webinar. They won't be available online anywhere else. It's just through watching this and having this. And I just want to say, no matter where you are in your sweet freedom journey, whatever you decide, I want to thank you for showing up, for getting this far into the webinar and listening, because as Woody Allen said, 80% of success is showing up. Of course, the other 20% is the 20% that makes all the difference, and that's actually doing the work. And that is what we at Sweet Freedom are dedicated to helping you do. So this is one of my favorite illustrations, again, from Return to Food. It's a quote by Meister Eckhart, and it says, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it is enough. So thank you for attending, and I truly, truly hope to see you in the Sweet Freedom program. So we have questions. Kathleen, we have a two-pay option for the program, but we don't have a three-pay option. So if you want to connect with Andy, so it's andy@sweetfreedom.ca. He can really help you with that. Oh, Julie, the price is priceless. Sweet freedom is invaluable. I totally agree with you, Julie. Yeah, so Kathleen, if you want to talk to Andy, he can help you get organized for that. And yeah, we can get you going for sure. Thank you, Julie, for your kind words about doing this work in the world and being appreciated. I truly appreciate that. It's definitely my reason for being. And Sarah, apologies for my impatience. I'd already signed up. Well, great. You're in the group and on the journey, and we really appreciate that. Okay, so apart from that, I'm just scrolling through and seeing if there are any other questions. Okay. Okay, so Sarah, I'm going to be doing how the work program for today, please. Okay, so that's separate things that Andy will actually take care of. Erin says, I have stage 5 cancer, so true about Cancer Connection, absolutely. Our interview with Ty Bollinger is a good one that kind of really, you know, does a lot in referencing that. So William, I'm sorry if we didn't get to the information as soon as possible, but there is a process of how people learn, Bill, and if you don't actually get the preempt, the information on its own usually is not as effective. So we've got, okay. So I'm just making sure of any questions that I might have missed. Apologies again for the technical difficulties in the end. Sorry, at the beginning. Just want to say hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining us from London. Bill in Silver Springs. MD, what state is that? Sorry, I'm Canadian. I don't know which one that is. Sarah in London, England. My godson and my best friend live in London. Tammy in Toronto. Kathleen from Seattle. Julie from West Sacramento. Erin from Phoenix. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, the link is there. If you haven't clicked on it yet, you can do so in the replay, and that will be available, that 167, until midnight. So with that, assuming that everyone has a life to get on with and get to, I will say thank you again for attending. And for those of you who are signed up and are joining us in the Sweet Freedom program, I want to say thank you so much for trusting us and for trusting yourself. And I look forward to seeing your success and transformations as you go along the process and embrace your sweet freedom. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Sending you all big hugs and love. That's kind of my thing, what I want to send out into the world. And again, thank you so much for actually being here. We look forward to seeing you in the Sweet Freedom Online Program Facebook group. And if you haven't already, join the Sweet Freedom Life Facebook group if you want to have another layer of support. So have a wonderful day, everyone. I hope you got value from that, and I look forward to being of service to you in the future with Sweet Freedom. Lots of love, everyone.